Good morning, and welcome to this fifth Sunday of Easter. It's funny, telling time is a very, challenging thing to do right now. The days often feel the same, and it's hard to know, um, how to keep track of time without a sense of a schedule and those kinds of things anymore. And I've found a lot of comfort actually in the liturgical calendar and being able to say, that this is the fourth or the fifth week of the Easter season. So I don't know if you're like me in that regard or not, but it's always helpful to remember where we are in time and space. This week, Jesus tells his disciples from the 14th chapter of John, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me." And there's a lot going on that can trouble our hearts these days. And every week it seems to be something new that's troubling. This week, what was troubling for me most, two things that were troubling to me. One is the places that are quickly reopening for business, and in conjunction with that, the protesting, if we call it that, that was happening in various places by groups of people that are really not really that invested in reopening the economy. It was an opportunity to kind of get a kind of a right-wing political message out there. But the second thing that was really troubling was the arrest of two white men who murdered a young black man in cold blood back in February. And they were arrested this week. But they only happened because a video was leaked of what happened. If that video had not come out, those two would have probably never been arrested and would never have had the opportunity to see justice. I find this really, really troubling because it's a story that just continues to happen over and over and over again. And I'm troubled with the reopening of the economy because, of course, we have to do that at some point. But at what cost? And to do it without testing available to everyone, and to do it without, any sense of, a way to take care of ourselves. Obviously, a vaccine is a long way away. There are many people who aren't sure that a vaccine is going to be that effective. And with all of that, it leads to questions of trust. And who do we trust? And how do we know who and when to trust? Our hearts are troubled in lots of different ways, but our hearts are troubled and we don't know what information we can rely on and what people we can rely on for our safety and for our sense of security and sense of self. And this is a hard reality that we're living in. Jesus goes on to say, that in my Father's house there are many dwelling places. And if it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again. I will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. And you know the way to the place I am going. When Jesus says to believe in me, to believe in God, another English way of saying that is trust me. Trust in me. Place your trust in me. Place your trust in God. For this passage isn't as much about going to heaven after we die, as probably most of the emphasis has been put on this passage for the last 50 or 60 years. Jesus is saying that I am trustworthy, that our relationship with each other, that my relationship with my Father is a trustworthy one. And that in that relationship and in this person of Jesus, in this personhood of God, that we can find safety and security, that we can actually dwell in that place. That Jesus' words are trustworthy, that we can rely on his truth. We can rely on the way of life that he showed us and that he lived out. And of course, Thomas, it could have been any of the disciples, but Thomas says, we don't know where you're going. We don't know the way. Can you show us? And this is where Jesus famously says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. To me, what's striking about that is the sense of relationship, the sense of intimacy. First, Jesus compares God to a house, saying that we can actually dwell within God. I don't know about you, but my house is my own. And for me, it's a very intimate thing whenever I invite somebody into my house. I need to trust you before I invite you into my house. Otherwise, I'll talk to you from my porch. That's under normal circumstances. Now we talk to everybody from our porch. But the disciples want to see, they want to tangibly know and experience what Jesus is talking about. And Jesus is saying you need to trust the relationship. The relationship goes much, much deeper. That's why he doesn't give them a proposition and says, this teaching is the way, the truth, and the life. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Similar to how God said that my name is I am that I am. And that the way that the Hebrew people understood God's name is that God is the one who is always and forever, ultimately present. And Jesus is saying that you can be intimate and present with me in this way as well. So when our hearts are troubled, this is what we can rely on. This is what we can trust, that God is always with us. And that God's Spirit dwells within us. And that we can listen to God's Spirit. to know that we are safe, to know that we are protected, and to know that we don't need to put our trust in systems or structures, that we can put our trust in God, and that God will always be there. And then we work to make the systems and the structures be more fair and be more just. We hold our leaders accountable. But ultimately, our place of rest, our place of safety, our place of hope is in God. Our psalm for this morning comes from Psalm 31. And I'll just end with reading a portion of that. And as I read, I invite you to maybe imagine what it would look like to dwell in God, to dwell in the house of God, knowing that there's a space for you, and knowing that ultimately, the same way that Jesus wanted to always be with his disciples, that God always wants to be with us. In you, O Lord, have I taken refuge. In you, O Lord, have I taken refuge. Be my strong rock, a castle to keep me safe. For you are my crag and my stronghold. For the sake of your name, lead me and guide me. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Place your trust in God. And know that we as a community are doing that together. And that we're here for each other. And that we are all dwelling in the same God together. Amen.